Good evening. Welcome to May 7th, Plastow Planning Board meeting. Charlene, can you take the roll, please?
Yep. Richard Anthony.
Here?
Karen Robinson is excused. Dan Kane.
Here.
Richard Clare is excused. Nolan Pelletier.
Present.
Bill Coy.
Yeah.
And Liz Costa. Here.
Excellent. For purposes of this meeting, I'm going to appoint Mr. Pelletier as a voting member. All right. So we have a couple, next item on the agenda, we have a couple minutes from previous meetings. We had tabled April 2nd's meeting minutes because of a question of whether or not
It's been corrected.
it's been corrected.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it passed 203.
All right. So
On page 2.
So page 2, the corrected portion was that the motion passing was 203 vote with 3 abstentions. All right, but with clarification, the abstentions don't affect the quorum, and so you have 2 in the affirmative. All right. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I got a couple of typos,
Okay.
and I was just going to ask the practice. I noticed these before. Should I just send them to you, or do we have to go through this in public?
If these are available, then we need to talk about it. I mean, sending it to me in advance is great, but then I know I've got it.
Okay, well, because I'll do that.
But
At
we
least you
do
have-
need to talk
yeah.
about it here. Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
think the reason is in case somebody looks at this online, they're following.
Yeah, no, understood. I just, I saw these a couple of days ago. I probably should.
So
What
do
I'll
we have
do
a
is I'll
time?
send them to you, then if I
And I'll
see them,
know
I'll raise them.
what we're up against. Okay.
So if you look on page 2, second paragraph, à la carte should have a period after it. At least it didn't on my printed copy.
Which one are we looking at, for the 2nd or the 16th?
The second, the one we just.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. I just like to make sure I got the right one.
Nope.
Is it second paragraph?
Look at the second paragraph and says it was agreed to ask. 2/3 of the way down, it says à la carte.
Yep,
This needs a period.
yep, first sentence.
And I believe we said to get the RFP out on April 7th. So on the third paragraph, after RFP, I think it just needs the word out. Otherwise, it doesn't make much.
All right.
On page 4, the last paragraph, second sentence, second line, excuse me, 2/3 of the way down, it said may attend, should be changed to may attend. That word may, that first may should be the word shall.
Okay.
That was it.
Anything else with respect to April 2nd?
Move to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? So 400. All right. Minutes from April 16th.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from April 16th.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 400. Well, I guess riffing off of minutes on April 2nd then. So we did vote, in essence, to establish another officer position, a secretary position. So I don't see any reason why, we wouldn't immediately just fill that or wait on it. Makes sense for reasons that we discussed in the previous meeting. We have clarification that the motion passed, so I make a motion to appoint Dan Kane as secretary to the planning board.
And what exactly would the duties be of the secretary, just to make sure we have it? What will be the responsibilities? Because we already have Charlene as the minute taker, so
Right.
obviously the secretary wouldn't do that.
No, but if we look in the minutes, we previously discussed establishing a position to handle such duties as editing, working documents, and other types of activities that the board is conducting with respect to its normal operation. And I guess, what we're doing right now, with respect to having working documents that we're talking about editing on rules and procedures, I think it makes sense to have one person that would be responsible for, in essence, maintaining those documents so that it isn't just a matter of, different versions of it floating around and such.
No, I just want to make sure we know what just to be
Yeah.
clear on it. That's all.
If you look in the rules of procedure, the draft, page 8, has some suggested language in there as to the duties of the secretary. C, 225(6)(C).
Does everyone have that, or do we need to just go? That's on the thumb drive. What do we have?
Rules of procedure. Chapter 225 ROP, the third one down. You can navigate, I'll just point out where it is. Go to page 8. It's like an earlier version. Because I cleaned a lot of that up. It's page 8. Yeah, this isn't the version that I sent you. This is an earlier version because it still has all the word. So for my last meeting, I accepted the vast majority of the changes. So it should be board duties. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily in this one. Like I said, that's the like.
So really what we're doing, right, if you can't find this, just to make sure someone's going to document that, make the changes. I just want to make sure we know.
No,
what the rules are.
that's why I put it in here, so
Yeah.
you could see it. So I'll just read it out loud. Will
That's
be
fine, that
helpful?
works.
Yeah. All right. So it says the secretary shall review all board minutes prior to submission to the board. That to me was just, catching editorial things, punctuation, that. Act as the board's scribe in preparing drafts of board correspondence, rules and regulations, and assist board subcommittees in preparation of their reports to the board.
All right, so the correspondence, just anything we send out anywhere?
And again, it's just someone drafting it, not sending it out.
Right, so we'd still get to see it
No
before.
question. In fact, all of this I looked at as a drafting exercise.
Okay,
I think,
Fine.
anyways, I think a lot of it, whatever's correspondence happening, it still goes through the chair and then it's distributed to board members. So
yeah, no, I just want to try to make sure we're
Yeah,
all on the same page, that's all.
you have this, take a look at if there's something tweak. I mean, this was my first stab.
No, I mean, I'm fine with that, I'm just
Yep.
want to make sure we're all on the same page, that's all.
So there's a motion on the floor. We probably did it in a little bit of reverse here. Do I have a second on
I'll
that?
second it.
All right. And so then, is there any more discussion with respect to the motion? We could go back in time and move the discussion portion to this. No? All right. So all in favor?
All right,
Aye. Abstained? Aye. One abstention.
Shouldn't vote for
And-
myself.
So it's going to be 301? Yeah, 301. Motion carries. All right. So we had a number of emails that we had sent out, just sort of, I mean, this is just, I think this should just be just a working session, continuing what we had previously been doing in the last couple of meetings. I think I don't see an updated version of the rules and procedures up there, but it looks like it was the same working document that, but just re-uploaded.
So like site plan subdivision regulations, I haven't done anything more on that. The only thing I did, as I explained last night, was to go through and match up the definitions that was in Article 2. So I matched them up to the zoning ordinance definitions. And I think the heavy lifting still needs to come from Steve Keach.
All right. With respect to that, I haven't, I asked for an update from our consultant, and in addition to whatever we have. And so I assume an answer or lack thereof an answer is the answer. It hasn't been completed and we don't have anything to review as of yet.
Well, I think what I could do is I could just make sure it's cleaned up a bit, is I can produce a draft, the next draft of the site plan and subdivision, just what I have. And then when we have the technical stuff, I think from Steve Keach, we can deal with it then. But at least I think in terms of the format, we'll probably I'll have a pretty good draft.
All right.
But the only thing I did was just normalize the definitions. And the master plan, we're still waiting from RPC, you said, right? We just don't
Correct,
have
yeah.
it.
They haven't merged. They haven't merged the, our end product with the actual document yet. So. I guess to that point also, just because it involves RPC or what, and master plan type updates and things like that, and what we want to do going forward. I know Karen, she isn't here with us tonight, but she had some, she'll be sharing information with us with respect to, I think she probably spoke to some people in Wyndham, and probably has, at least some model specimens of some kind that we can look at and see what they're doing, and maybe there's something that we can use to motivate our work with respect to the master plan going forward. Bill, I think there's been some discussion with respect to voters we didn't approve the $100,000 that for the statistical
Right,
update.
that was a deliberative. We tried to add that to the
Right.
budget, and everyone was here that day said, no, we need to find it, so it got voted down. So selectmen, we gotta try to figure out where in the budget we can find the 100 plus.
Okay.
And we've gotta start that process. That'll probably, we want, at least want to probably get through the first 6 months, and then to see where we're gonna have to get that money from to do that.
Okay.
And that's part of it. Plus, the other thing is too, we found out Monday night, the other thing we gotta look at too is plowing is already over for the year. It's already over the
What's that?
budget, plowing.
Plowing's over budget.
It's already over budget for the year.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, quite frankly, it's like owning a retail store is a 1-inch storm is just as costly almost as a.
Yeah, if you talk to, Dan at Highway, he'd rather a 10-inch storm that comes
Right.
quick. You get one, 5 inches and it's spread out over 10 hours. It's more costly.
Yep. All right, I mean, that makes sense.
So that's germane, I guess, to our discussion, because, we've a couple meetings, we've talked about it, have entertaining or engaging with RPC, for, something in the way of a circuit rider that we had in a similar arrangement previously. I think there might be appetite for RPC in terms of to do something like that. They initially had some staffing issues. Those might have been political climate. They might be amenable to actually kind of entering into arrangements of some kind where they would support what we're doing here. So, and I think what we had discussed was, maybe some support and guidance with respect to maybe master plan update, and then maybe, then breaking up time or whatever to maybe some of our workshops, provide a little bit of guidance and things like that. But in speaking to the town manager, again, that's, it looks like we need to find $100,000 in the budget. And that, so that's going to be the challenge.
Mhm.
And I think we could start talking to RPC. Okay. Just sort of lay the groundwork. But again, whether or not we'll be able, or even to see what their proposal might be, in terms of a contract.
Mhm.
Right. So,
Yeah,
whether or
I
not,
think we should pursue that. I mean, if.
Yeah, there's
if
no
it co-
reason-
If it comes to the end and we don't have it, we don't have it.
Right, but you have to see if they at least can do it.
Yes.
If they can't do it, then that's it.
It's moot.
So if they can do it, is that going to be a 6-month hold? Is that what you're saying? Is it
The 6-month hold is, we're almost there.
yeah, we're
We're into May
They're
now.
not, no, okay, I misunderstood. So not
Yeah,
6
we're
months.
about halfway.
It's 6
we're about
months into the
halfway.
year,
You're saying 6 months into the year.
Right.
Not, okay.
which is really like July 1, right?
Yep.
And we're pretty damn close to it now.
Yeah. So, I think that's what I've been told, is that July, they'll, sort of a benchmark to say that, what do budgets look like, in the departments and things like that. All right. But again, for the record, we budgeted for, a circuit rider for 2025. We budgeted for some sort of master plan, updates, going forward for 2025. We also, I believe, budgeted with the idea that we wanted to do a statistical, not a statistical update, I'm sorry, an updating for the impact fees. So we did post, I believe it is posted out there now, and it's also for New Hampshire Municipal Association. A request for proposal for impact fee updates. So, whether or not, we're not obligated to do, I mean, they can come back with a proposal of some kind, but we're not obligated to do it. So I would, I guess I'll just say it out loud. I would like to not see the planning department's budget be completely gutted in terms of things that, if there's money that needs to be found in the budget, I think, there are some things that are contingent, and then there are some things that I think that are a little more essential to the functioning of the board. And it is worth noting that, the 2024 town report does indicate that there's, that we did have a budget surplus of approximately $335,000. All right, so that's not abnormal. I mean, that's pretty much the normal rhythm of the budgeting in terms of what we have with respect to what we build into the budget or such. So with that said, I think it's reasonable to think that there is a couple $100,000 worth of slack already existing in the budget.
It depends on a lot of different things too, right? It's revenue coming in.
Yeah.
The town, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, there's
I mean-
$319,000 in revenue.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, so we're carrying, at least from a budget perspective, right? And we've done this, as far back as I've looked at in terms of the audited financials and such like that, that we routinely, carry about $200,000 to $300,000 of a surplus in unexpended budget items, and also a concurrent $300,000+ in revenue that's in excess. So,
Mercifully, that's not our lane.
well,
Well, maybe used to lanes, but it's certainly
Right.
not mine. But here's what I would recommend is that we nail down what our PC has one way or the other, and then at least we know what we're talking about. If it's nothing, then it's nothing, And
Yeah.
if it's something, then, then we at least, but if it sits there as nothing, guess what's going to happen?
oh yeah, it'll be
gonna
it'll
go.
be a victim of
Yes. So at least let us know.
a rescission of some kind.
No, you have to, because we need to see everything in front of us and then figure out, okay, this is the best place where it needs to be, everything
Yeah,
has to be spent.
Right. But at least you have something in front of you. Okay, we know.
Yeah, because as of right now, we don't have anything.
That's right. Have we, by the way, just following up, have we gotten any responses to the RFP for the impacts, off the top of your head?
I don't.
I haven't seen anything.
I don't.
at least
Because I think they're all
communicated
due next week, right? I think so. Or at least the initial responses. I
22nd
think-
or something?
I think the finals due the 22nd, but I thought like initial questions or anything, because that's when you'll know what.
to me. May 29th.
Yeah, and that's usually the way the RFPs
Yeah.
work. If you have questions, you got to submit them by this date
certain date, and then you'll start to know.
if there's interest.
So I believe May 29th is when they have to, by 4 PM Eastern time. They have
But
to be
I think by
submitted to
like the
us.
14th or something like that, isn't it? They have to submit their questions, or I thought there was something like
I thought it was the 22nd. I thought it was
Maybe.
7 days
Well,
before.
that. Okay.
Yeah, that generally sounds about right, Nolan. Usually it is about 7 days before.
Yeah, the question period, May 22nd,
Okay.
2025, 4 PM Eastern time.
Okay.
Apparently that was important that we specified Eastern time. All right. Dan, we've forwarded an email here. Is there anything that you just want to just go over with respect to this list? I mean,
Which one?
aspirational, just on the 26th of April.
Was that on the rules of procedure or the zoning?
Bunch of, I mean, I don't, do we have the rules? That's the issue. What we have up there is not latest and greatest.
Did everyone get the hard copy, though? So the hard copy should have little pink things here. And it has my comments in the margin. It'll say, DJK.
Which one are we looking at?
Sure.
It's the Town of Plastow bylaws and rules of procedures. So 21 pages.
It is stapled to, well, this one is,
I think you have it.
this one's 18. I think I have the copy
Oh,
from.
is it, okay, is this,
last
Oh, you know what
meeting.
it is? You have it on 2 pages, right?
This one was stapled to the other minutes
Yeah.
from the prior
You
meeting.
have them copied on both sides.
Yes.
I just have one.
Oh, he said something I had drafted.
so is it in the back of the minutes here?
I think so.
April
Bylaws
2nd?
and rules of procedure, right?
Yes.
That is it.
All right. And this is the most up-to-date one, is what you're saying?
What's that?
Is this the most up-to-date one, you're saying?
No, that doesn't.
I was gonna say, your page numbers that you're recording weren't matching up.
Okay.
That's what it should look like.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that then.
Yeah, so.
I don't have that.
No,
Stapled to
I
the
don't think any of us do.
Can I see yours?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the version we already went through a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's the one that was attached to the
Yeah.
the minutes.
Yeah.
It's this.
I don't think so.
I think I do have.
Well, then we need to get this out in everyone's hands.
Are those the ones?
And believe it or not, I did this and sent
Attached
it
to the,
like on the 26th of April before I went to my craft beer conference. I figured it was better to get it out before versus.
Did you
after.
send it before or after you
I
drank
sent
it?
it before.
this isn't the updated one, right?
Unless you got it. Well,
Maybe,
I think to me, people need time to read this. And then what I would suggest is as you're going through it, if you have comments, shoot them off to me. I'll include them.
Mhm.
And then the next meeting, we can go through them.
yeah, it'll be a discussion point
Yeah.
to start. Yeah.
So if you look, as you read it, if you send me, and then what I'll do is I'll just create the edit list.
No, makes sense.
Put them in here.
Or why don't you?
Makes sense.
We'll send it through the, yeah.
Yes, not, yeah.
I know,
No,
there
it's-
was something sent today, but I don't even know if those were the updated ones.
I think they were, because I think I
I,
filled it
I
out.
did look at them, but I didn't compare.
But I will tell you the format. So I accepted virtually all the changes from the last draft, from that one. But what I did though is anything that I thought we were still kind of tweaking around with, I highlighted and just put a comment in. So
Okay,
you weren't looking at all those.
gotcha.
And I
Okay.
said, okay, this is why we do it. If there's new stuff, I highlighted it and said,
Okay.
this is new.
All right.
Rules and procedures, this one here. Is this the?
Yes. But does it have my notes?
Yeah, you have,
Well, I see your name off to the right, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's you.
Yeah,
so this is just, it was just.
yeah. But I think there's enough here that it would be better if you just read this.
Let's, the idea that, everyone will look at it, you have comments then will be remitted to the chair, to us staff. All right, we'll do it that way. But if there's anything that, if you just want to like go through this and I'll navigate accordingly. Just talk about
Okay.
that a lot.
I can certainly do that. So let's go to my first. So the authority and duties. All this is new. Wasn't in our rules of procedure. It left it understood that, you know, the RSAs. I put it in here to specifically say this is what we can do. And I tethered this to the training we go through with an HMA. The only thing I was not sure of, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I figured Bill would know, is just the delegation of roads. You know, that typically goes to the selectmen because it's been,
Right.
it's a planning board authority under the RSA, but that can be taken away from, if you will, the planning board.
Yeah.
I think that's happened here in Plastow. You know for sure?
It probably has. I don't know 100%.
Can you just double check on that one? Because if it is, we just take it. I mean, I treat it as if it's been delegated in here. but That would be under D, A, B, C, D. Yeah, it says the board, unless the responsibility has been otherwise dedicated by the local legislative body to the Board of Selectmen. Yeah, that's the only one I was not. I tried to look back a ways, and I couldn't find it, so I assume it was one of those things done many, many years ago. So if you go down to, I'm just going to give you the section numbers.
Yeah.
So 225-2, purpose. This is a complete ad. I just, yes.
So I'm just gonna, for purposes of.
Yeah. It just restates the purpose of this. The overriding thing I went through this is if I thought something was somewhat ambiguous, I stated it. I also, just from my year on the planning board, I also thought that if we had a document that's documented our rules of procedure and put the stuff in here, we sometimes ask a lot of questions on process and everything. My thought was to put it in here. And very little of this is original writing. Most of this is borrowed from someplace in New Hampshire that's already doing this.
Just tradition, rules and procedure wise. I don't think they sort of an underutilized document. Historically,
And
they're not necessarily robust.
And I had a conversation with you know, with an HMA, and their view was, you know, throughout New Hampshire, their encouragement is always to have this more detailed than less. So 225-3, again, that just lists everything we should have a public hearing on, or we're required to have a public hearing on. One thing I did do, and I would encourage you to just double check me, I did go back and validate that when I put an RSA in here, that tied out to the RSA, but, and I double checked it and triple checked it, but I think it'd be worthwhile to check it again.
Conditional use permit, that's actually new.
Well, conditional use permits exist now in town, but only for wetlands and the aquifer. The current zoning ordinance, the piece enacted, broaden that now. And in fact, I suspect we're going to have a conditional use permit before us shortly. based on the ZBA meeting. General provisions, some of this was already in our ordinance. The only thing I thought people should pay attention to, and I say it in my notes, is H. My recommendation is we should try to meet it once annually, at least with the Conservation Commission and the ZBA. Not necessarily to get, together or however, but there are things that, that cross over. And we're not talking about applicants or plans or anything like that, but just like process and things they observe that, might come up that the planning board has to address through zoning ordinances.
Yeah, I think the way you have it shall strive, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't.
you can try, doesn't mean we
Right.
can get together.
Right. We should at least have I don't think.
Yeah, you make an attempt and.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what that looks like. I know that maybe a year or two ago, we did discuss that.
Yeah, it was a few couple of years ago, yeah.
And I think there was some, back and forth. There wasn't a meeting of the minds, we said.
And there very well may not be, but I think we should at least strive. And certainly the Conservation Commission, there are elements there. Like, my just observation is, prime wetlands may have ended up different if there was some better coordination, between us and the Conservation
So you
Commission.
could almost have maybe like an aspirational, just sort of a roundtable type event. I mean,
Yeah.
like with Conservation Commission, is it wetland permits or something along those lines? We're supposed to be CC'd on that, or at least we're on the distribution list for being CC'd on that. And sort of an open, is that the only thing that we're supposed to be CC'd on, that's going through Conservation Commission? Probably, just, because that was the only time, I've seen one time only that we were, but I think there's been more, haven't seen before. So,
May very well be, I don't, yeah.
all right.
225.5. So, D is kind of the, this was really related to new members.
Yeah, just to make sure they get a copy of everything, right? Yeah.
And it was in the last version, but I still highlighted it here. It is just not only initial training, but ongoing training, at least 2 hours, a year after your initial training on the planning, the initial requirement, and that's from our existing rules of procedures, was 6 hours, in the first year. 2 hours, I told you that they have those planning lunches at noon. They're an hour. They're recorded. You don't have to. So I think they're very helpful, actually,
Well, I mean,
Richard.
from a training perspective.
You're not mic'd up there. Do you want me to bring the mic up to you, or? That shouldn't have occurred to me.
I mean, I don't want to have it on the lapel.
You're not projecting.
All right. Test. All
Sorry.
right. No, not fine. People are going to be like, what is he muttering? Well, in terms of training, I mean, I think we're, you can't say that, opportunities are communicated and pushed to us
Oh,
regularly.
no question.
Right,
That's what I'm saying. And this just, I didn't think this was that big of a deal, but it's more than we're doing now.
Yeah.
Or required to do now.
So set the 2 hours.
Yeah,
That's, think of what you waste 2 hours on
believe me.
daily, never mind, in a year.
Yeah, I may waste 2 hours before noon.
I waste 2 hours, just waking up.
Yeah.
Now, just I'm noting that the town email addresses, I did follow up with the, Mr. Colby. And town email addresses for the planning board, that's in the works right now, and that'll be addressed whenever IT addresses it. But
Yeah, we're trying to get the licensing cost is what he's waiting to hear back.
Yeah. But in terms of what probably satisfies or best practice, next tier down, you're probably encouraged to have a dedicated email for, planning board uses, all right, so that you're not commingling. So if you need to go set up another email address, coming from New Hampshire Municipal Association, that's sort of a best practice right there. So if you go out, set up another Gmail or something like that, and just make sure it's communicated so that we can have, you can have your emails segregated, just so that you're not in an awkward situation where you have to, go through your private email and segregate what's planning board business and what isn't.
No, I think that's fine. To me, it's just, whatever we do, it just be disciplined enough that it's only for planning board
Right.
information.
But it's, I think the best practice is to have a dedicated town email.
Yeah.
Right. So, there, but, if you're going to be disciplined, then being disciplined is having a non-town email address and segregating your planning board correspondence. All right, next.
This was from the original draft. It was in there that shouldn't have same members on the planning board and the ZBA.
You're talking about J, service on other boards?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's highlighted as 3.
All right. So number 3.
So there was an original proposal up at the state, and I think it's passed. Where originally it was proposed to exactly have this language. I think it's been amended so that it creates, I think, a very convoluted recusal process that I don't know if that is necessarily workable. But, I think that's where it is now at the state level. I think
Well, this is pretty clear cut.
I agree.
I like this, you shouldn't
No, I
have to,
agree, but-
because recusal, it doesn't have, it's upon the member, it's pushed onto the member to exercise recusal. You can't be
I think
recused.
these are independent boards. They should be independent.
Correct.
I agree with that. Independent.
All right. What do we got on the, is it meeting attendance? That looks like it's-
So the next kind of area I wanted to highlight was removal of resignation of members. And this comes right from an NHMA training. Number 2, they strongly recommended that anyone who resigns, their resignation submitted to a quorum of the board, and the resignation is effective immediately. Their practice pointer, if you will, on this one was that scheduling something out, I'm going to resign June 1st, leaves the board somewhat in limbo. And they recommended, this language. I took it verbatim from the training.
mean, right,
This would apply to any committee, everything, you know?
all right.
If you resign, you resign. But the resignation should be submitted to a quorum of the board. I think that's. Or maybe you just quit.
I mean, well, I mean, right now, I mean, the way we handle it, if someone tenders their resignation, it's, you know, it ends up being, well, at least notification wise, everyone on the board is notified, I believe, or should be. But
Yeah, but it avoids these so-called resignations and waiting.
I mean, I don't have any problem with
Yeah.
that.
well, yeah, I mean, I agree with this because I mean, also, I mean, where people, you know, tendering their resignations, dates certain and things like that, there are elements of, at least perception wise, sort of gamesmanship or something that goes on. All right.
So N is the next one, is planning staff, finances, and board council.
All right.
So this was in the first draft, but I didn't think we came to any real conclusion, so I kept them highlighted here. The board, in consultation with the town manager, shall appoint in accordance with RSA 673-16. That language is right there. Planning staff from town personnel as deemed necessary to carry out all administrative work related to the proper and efficient implementation of board duties and obligations. You know, it seems to me you can create some sort of collaborative thing. The reality is we have town personnel that do multiple things. We don't generally have any say in the multiple things. We only have say on what the planning board, you know, needs. And we're subject to the budget, we're subject to everything. I think we should just, you know, and I took a stab at a job description for planning staff, and my stab was just taking it out of the existing rules and procedures to figure out, okay, it's out here, we can play around with that. I personally don't think we need a massive amount of support, but we need something. Even if it's just the process applications. And if somehow we get a little more support from RPC, because let's face it, RPC is functioning as somewhat of our town planner. And we used to have a town planner, you know, at least part-time.
Yeah.
12 hours, I believe.
Yeah, well, it's again, you know, we're getting something. But you know, one of the things I struggle with in Plastow is that, you know, we always talk about ourselves as being a small town, and we are but we're a complex town because of 125. You know, that places a burden on the town that's disproportionate to its population. So we need I think we need some professional help in planning, personally.
Yeah, you figure just because of 125, more people go through this town than live here.
No question. No
Daily.
question. Look at the traffic. I mean, I know the traffic. I mean, you got more people that use Elm Street than use 108
Yeah,
by a factor of 1.5.
yeah.
So that just gets so all this was a way, we just figure out a way to communicate that to the town manager. He figures out, he's got the more responsibility to figure out, okay, how am I going to allocate all these people, these scarce resources? And I think it's incumbent upon us to be clearer what we need.
All right, so this is just sort of memorializing what we actually do now. I mean, I think, you know.
Yeah, and the only thing it does is it's consistent with the ZBA is you just can't have people who've got enforcement responsibility doing planning board things.
Are
That's
you talking about number 4, right?
Now, just to be clear too, that does not prevent anyone from servicing other land use boards in an administrative capacity. And these here, so my idea of the process was we put our stuff together. We say, okay, this is a good draft, and then we send it off to council because we need them to weigh in on this. And all of this stuff, I think they need to have a view on.
Yeah, fair enough.
The next one I would go to is 225-8.
Well, let's just back it up there for a second. All right, you already read that out loud, and I'm
That was
thinking,
the secretary.
yeah, 225-6.
That's 25-8 is meetings.
Yeah.
When do we want to get stuff? Because I think this is a mechanism we can probably do a better job on. Because we're still getting stuff, and this is our responsibility,
Right.
I mean, my general feeling is if you can give me something a week ahead of time, I can guarantee you I can look at it, I can think about it, and I can come to the meeting prepared. If I'm getting it that day, very difficult, that I feel like I'm prepared. This is just my personal, feeling.
Yeah, the only caveat is that I know that some of these things, in terms of timelines, should be aspirational in the sense that we have information should be pushed out. So the norm should be 7 days prior, let's say. But if something comes in last minute, I think we could be flexible.
Well, there's always
Right.
the exception, but
Yeah.
if
But we don't want the exception to become the norm. And, so it's probably good just to throw these things out there so that people can,
well, again, this is here. This is just, I think something like this needed to be here, whether it's 7 days, 5 days, 4, I don't really, it just needs to be something, that it gives us a little bit.
because 7 days, we have 2 meetings a month. All right. Well, yeah.
Well, 7 days for like the agenda, how, is that aggressive? Because I know as selectmen, we do our agenda Thursday for Monday meetings.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it probably is, and maybe that's it. We just pick, okay.
Like the
well,
first meeting, the
Yeah.
first meeting of the month,
Yeah.
you got some time.
Yeah.
And you can meet these,
Yeah.
but in terms of like the second meeting, that'd be sort of,
Well, the second meeting is all mostly site plan stuff,
Right.
so it's just, that's all statutory, we
Yeah.
have, those have to be in a certain amount of days before we meet. Take a look at it.
yeah,
Maybe it should be something, I think.
no, it's
I'm
just,
not,
And I try to pick up my materials as soon as they're available, but that's usually the day before. And then it's a very, can I do it? Yeah, but I'm going back and trying to get everything. And then I come back, I come here, and a lot of times there's even more in the folder. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, I think, maybe there's, maybe stuff gets forwarded at least digitally faster. Okay. With the idea that if stuff's printed out, that's sort of extra. I like to have hard copy myself.
I'd rather read a hard
Yeah.
copy. I'm not
But,
a big computer screen.
Yeah.
see me, I'm used to reading everything on email. I read it Read it all there.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm on it like 7, 8 hours a day. It's all what you're used to, right?
Yeah.
All right, so, all right, next.
So what was that? L, I think, right? Page 11, L. I just beefed up the language on disqualification. Again, I took this right from some of the training, and I took.
Where are you looking at?
L, disqualification of a member.
Oh,
and
okay.
it's- I think that pink highlight I used isn't coming across as
No.
well. on
So,
the screen.
but that's just sort of reiterating what the existing process is, in terms of,
It's, remember, and it's only relating to the planning board sitting in its quasi-judicial capacity.
Right.
Which is really only to review site plans. Virtually the rest of the time, we're acting in our legislative capacity. And those distinctions.
Quasi-legislative,
No, just
fully
legislative.
legislative,
Yeah, fully.
okay.
Quasi. It was quasi-judicial or?
All right.
One of the thing in M is personal electronic devices. This is just my observation. So we already provide for the recording secretary for Gloria to use electronic device. I know when RPC was here, I forget her name, Victoria.
Mhm.
She had her laptop out all the time,
Right.
as a resource. If that's going to be the norm, then we should probably say something here in our rules of procedure. Because right now, this is the language in our rules of procedure.
Where are you looking at?
And M, personal electronic devices at meetings.
I'm not seeing,
You on page 11?
yeah, I don't have, it's not demarcated by,
Should be,
Page.
it's on mine.
so what is it, 225.6? Where are you at?
I think we're in 225, right? 225.8,
25.
item M.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Ah,
That's H on these.
I mean, this day and age, right, with personal devices, if you need information to look up something, right?
I don't-
I highlighted this because I'm thinking,
who said that was? I mean, because my understanding, the last right to know training that we had here, the question came up, if somebody had, a phone, or it looked like somebody saw them on a phone doing something, that, the question was, does that open that device up to a right to know? And I believe New Hampshire Municipal Association was like, no. I mean, I think they came out, and, affirmatively said no.
well, the example was, I think, is, your wife or whoever, husband, text you. That has nothing to do with
Yeah.
business. Is that somehow now?
But I think what this might almost be saying is if you pull out your phone, someone does a right to know, they have a right to basically look at your phone for that timestamp.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. Because I think that question was explicitly asked at one of the trainings.
I don't know, I'm just almost how I'm interpreting it quick.
Yeah.
So, and it's my understanding that your phones are not, it's in the meeting, emails, phone calls are not, and
Yeah, you shouldn't be
phone.
pulling.
You shouldn't be pulling your phone out anyways unless it's an emergency, but
Like, to me, I think if it was RPC or someone had a laptop here that's connected, that we need to look up something.
right, that would be,
It's beneficial to everything, and
And it's, so what? It's subject to right to know. you
Correct.
know? It's
it's not a big deal, really.
No.
Yeah,
So I think we can figure out a way maybe to wordsmith this a little bit, but.
You know something, as we send this off to Charlie, he may already have something.
Correct, correct.
Instead of, why recreate the wheel if he
No,
already
no,
has it?
a lot of it, I don't really want, I just want to facilitate comments and know
Sure.
it's going to him,
Right, but that could be one. What do you think of this wording? You already have
And
something.
that's what I did with him on the zoning ordinance. Is I highlighted things that I wanted him to look at closer.
Yep. Okay.
So N is voting.
All right.
This is virtually all new. I was kind of a little bit torn on this in that, it's fairly perfunctory, but you guys can give me some comments on that, what you think. I just created the process. I didn't put it highlight, but meeting procedures it just codifies what we do on the agenda. Then the next piece is 22510.
22510. All right.
Electronic or multimedia presentations. I actually saw this in another towns and I kind of liked it. So I put it in here so that we,
So the whole thing's new?
yeah.
All right.
And what it does is it just doesn't force multimedia presentations from the applicants, but it suggests it, which I happen to like better.
I do myself, because it's nice when they can kind of
Yes.
point to what they're talking about.
Yes.
I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah. I get a
Maybe
better
we
feel.
should add an E, that we should have an in-house laser pointer. So,
And then 22512. We're entitled to reconsider decisions. We can elect that option. And I thought that was a kind of good one for us to have, because there could be opportunity when we make a decision and it gets noodled around and maybe we want to, maybe it's highly controversial or not controversial or something, or whatever reason is, it gives us within the 30-day statutory appeal period, we can elect to reconsider a previous decision.
I think this one's going to be, I mean, I think, this one, I think is going to be fraught with, we should be careful about this. But at the same time, if, I'm just speaking, out loud, if we feel that something, what we think that something is,
Right now, we don't have the opportunity to reconsider. So this, in the rules of procedures, it gives us the opportunity to reconsider. It doesn't force us to.
well, so the first line here, the board can reconsider decision.
Just
Yeah,
remember, may.
yeah, may. But where's that? I mean, we're not inventing that out of whole cloth, are we?
No, 676.4.
Okay. So that's what I mean, is that we should kind of look at that, and, I mean, there seems to be a lot in there.
The interesting one here is the last sentence. If an alternate was seated for an application decision but not seated at the next meeting, they may request if a member is willing to make a motion for reconsideration for good cause. So I guess my thing would be like, say an alternate is there for the original decision, that I think if you reconsider, in my opinion, that alternate should be part of that reconsideration.
I agree too.
Because other than that, you could have votes change and
Well,
someone was there. That's my.
no, I know, I agree. I mean, I think, without going into particulars, I think, we've seen that where,
Well, this one, in my version.
I think they only ask them is, hey, have you kept abreast of the process? And they're like, yes, I have.
Yeah.
And you're like,
But I think if we're going to reconsider, whoever was the voting members originally that's who should be voting on the reconsideration.
Yeah, I agree too. I agree too. So, and this comes right out of the recent NHMA training, is that also is that only a member who voted on the prevailing side may make a motion for reconsideration.
Okay.
So it has to be the majority, a member of the majority.
Yeah.
I was about to say, in my notes, I have this style with an L, which means lawyer, so to take a look at this stuff. And then I think the last one was communications. And again, I saw this in another town's rules of procedures, and I kind of like, I don't know if it's just too wordy, but is that we're a board and that we're all aware of what's being communicated, I mean, I think the selectmen do a good job of that. You're generally all aware if someone's going to say X, Y, or Z, you all know it, I think in our rules of procedures, I think it's a good thing to have. Like I said, this might be a little bit too wordy, but take a look.
is it all new?
It's all new. Doesn't exist.
All right, so.
And then the last one is 225.15 sidewalks. Should be in there. It's not in our existing rules of procedures, so I just borrowed it from someone. I think I might have borrowed it from the town of Bow.
All right.
It looks pretty good.
All right, so we'll push this out to everyone.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff in there, that we nibble away at it, and then
I think the reconsideration one, it's probably worth, really kind of digging into that a little bit.
yeah.
So,
My view is I like to have more tools in the toolbox than less. So,
but in terms of like changes and things like that, or proposed changes, I don't see anything as. If anyone has anything that they want to see added, then let's we can have that pushed as available.
so what I would propose, I'd be given direction, is gather everyone's comments, put them, submit that back.
Mhm.
We can take a look at it, and then yay or nay, and then get it off to council.
Yep. All right. So for the next workshop meeting, just, and again, if no one has anything, then that we'll just kind of take that as being, all right. Is there anything else that we want to just walk through it, or?
No, I think the only thing is, what do we want to do with zoning ordinances? First of all, not to scare the pants off everyone, but this is just a big basket, My belief is this thing gets narrowed down to probably in the 4 or 5, ordinance range. And I think we commit to a topical description of substance. We could get 5 ordinances in on one page.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and there's things here too that, we need to get input from the Board of Selectmen. I think the whole building code one is the big one. We're behind the 8 ball a little bit because the RSA's mandated certain things that we have yet to do, but I think there's certainly language that we have sitting around that can be used as a base to play around with and work out something that makes sense. But to me, I think the BOS has to,
You're talking about adopting the state building code to comply
Yeah.
with Senate Bill
yeah.
437.
Right now, our building code sits in the town code, and it's from 2002. But as a practical matter, the building department uses the state building code. So it's not like they're using that, but it sits there. So.
Okay, so things to address. Is that on the, is that one of the items that are on there? I don't think so.
I don't know if it's in that zoning ordinance email materials. That one at the top.
Does that look like it, Dan? This is town of Amherst.
No, that's the actual draft ordinance, so. Nope. Nope. Just let me look at them for a second. Nope, none of those.
All
That's
right,
the stuff that was sent previously.
all right, so we want to circulate that. So
Well,
what do we,
The recommendation I made was, I think I believe it's you, me, and Rich Leclerc that are that's the zoning subcommittee. I think we need to have a meeting, go through this stuff. And the first meeting I would suggest is we decide what we want to do. And, take some direction from the planning board, as a group to say, hey, forget this. Like, I put, stuff that we had from last year, do we want to take a look at it? And this is just me going through the kind of file. And certainly by no means the only source here. There could be a bunch of stuff that, other members think we should be taking a look at. I mean, I put in here that, the things in my top ones, there's a bunch of permitted uses in the zoning ordinance that have no definitions. To me, those should be defined, Now, some of them, like a funeral establishment, okay, we know what the common definition of that is. But if we're going to go to the trouble of defining them as permitted uses, we should be clarifying. I think we should amend the prime wetland setbacks, because right now they sit at that, so-called placeholder amount.
Mhm.
And if we ever go to address them in the future, I think we wouldn't take as much guff if they were just sitting at the regular wetlands. And then we're talking about, okay, we're going to increase them. So it's pretty evident what we're going to do.
Yep.
So this just doesn't have any impact on anything. It just, some of it's a little bit optical, but it does, it does force that discussion down a different path. So I thought we should.
You really want to have the temporary structure discussion?
No, I don't, but,
Yes.
I didn't want to self-edit it out. Well, because they're not temporary.
I mean,
So, and that's, some of that gets fixed in the building code too. So,
Sorry.
but some of that gets fixed in the building code, because if you start to follow the definitions that are sitting in the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, it exempts a bunch of structures that we do in this town, like, intermittently, but it just codifies them. So that, but no, I don't want to go through temporary structures.
all right, so maybe it makes sense to have a meeting of the subcommittee or whatever. And
And pick the top ones,
what's that?
pick like your top ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my recommendation is we pick our top 5,
So I think that's a good number. If you go with your top 5, and then we know you're gonna end up with a couple more, because things are gonna happen.
Yeah, all the state stuff may change.
Right.
that number, but
If you have 5, you're just gonna add those.
Yeah.
I think that's a good number.
that's kind of the way as I was looking at stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
This can,
So put something together, and then we can just push whatever that product is to, the planning board at large to facilitate discussion. All right. Anything else on this computer before I walk back over there?
No.
All right.
Instead of carrying the mic, they should fit you for a headset.
No, I already have one of those stuck to my head 10 hours a day. All right. Anything else on the agenda that we want to cover?
you have nothing from the master plan committee?
Do not.
Like I said, I think Karen has some material.
Okay.
And she'll be, I'll encourage her to send it, through me, through the admin, just so that we have it. But she seemed to think that it was pretty substantive and worth taking a look at.
Have you been taking a look at the legislative tracking?
Not in depth, but
There was a lot that was getting done, and now that the hard stuff's there, it's kind of ground to a halt.
Yeah.
Yep. But the zoning, the so-called zoning mandates are still alive and kicking.
what were they talking about with respect to, well, I think coming down and bigfooting, low density type, zoning,
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that something that they're talking about, taking away the option?
Limited,
just-
yeah. And it looks like they're nibbling away at the edges, but yeah, that's clearly who's ever sponsoring this and and what you have now are committee reports. They've passed one or the other of the houses. So these things, are made. When you look at that list, anything in yellow has passed at least one house, and so there's a cadre in both the House and the Senate that are, they've been on the kind of, people need to do what they should be, they can do, and their town shouldn't be limiting housing, And all you have to do is, I mean, we get them, Deep pushes them out, but you can see what the responses have been from some of the towns, if they're fearful, and NHMA is fearful. I mean, I attended that whole day. I mean, I attended it via Zoom, but that whole day training a week or so ago, and it was, be prepared. And even going after things as to prevent like NHMA or NHMA types from actually lobbying on behalf of towns. They were looking to restrict some of that. So, yeah, no, and I'm just surprised. Normally, I would have seen more stuff get resolved. So, at least maybe that some of the stuff is cooler heads are prevailing.
Shall see.
All the agriculture stuff passed those.
All right, that's legislative updates. Any old business? New business? All right, I feel that I'm missing something. All right, legal notices. I guess that's new business. So Plastow Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 PM. The location is 145 Main Street, second floor, Plastow, New Hampshire, to consider the following. PB 25-05, the completeness of an application from David Abari for review of a site plan for the redevelopment of a retail plaza to include a restaurant with a drive-through and continued retail use with landscaping, drainage, parking, lighting updates. The property is located at 111 Plastow Road, tax map 28, lot 16 in the C1 zoning district. The property owner of record is Plastow Road 111 LLC. The application is found to be complete. The planning board may immediately conduct the public hearing. All right, you were notified of this public hearing because you were noted to be in a butter. Subject. All right. All right, the Plastow Zoning Board of Adjustment will hold a meeting Thursday,
This is just giving us the results of that last
Yeah, that's the
one.
results of the
All right.
last one.
So
All
that's
right,
all.
results, there we are. It's
I
not,
don't think
it's
you
not,
need to read
it's not
that.
large enough, right?
No, you don't have to read that if you don't
Not
want
gonna
to.
read
That's your call.
Made the call. All right. No one else has anything, then I'll close this meeting at 7:56. Thank you.